The Patriots, a non-partisan group of eminent Nigerians, has urged President Bola Tinubu to convene a national Constituent Assembly to produce a people's democratic constitution for the country. Emeka Anyaoku, former Commonwealth Secretary General, made a call when he led the Patriots on a visit to the President last Friday. And the former presidential candidate of African Democratic Congress, Dumebi Kachikwu, has also urged President Tinubu not to concede to calls by former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Emeka Anyaoku, and other elder statesmen in the country to change the 1999 Constitution. For him, the 1999 Constitution hasn't been exhausted. But for the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, NINAS, they completely disagree with this position. He says that they are insisting that Nigeria is being held by a non-legitimate document known as the 1999 Constitution. The question is the time to arrive at a new and acceptable constitution around the corner? This is the Eastern Eye. I am Alex Obodo. Welcome to the Eastern Eye here on Afia TV. It's a program that X-rays the political, social, and economic developments around us. Tonight, I am joined by Tony Nnadi. He is an attorney, Secretary General of Lower Niger Congress, LNC, and co-convener of the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, NINAS. Thank you so much, Mr. Tony Nnadi, for joining me tonight on the Eastern Eye.
Thank you for having me. Welcome, viewers.
All right, so I'm sure you've been seeing a lot of things that may have ensued, but we have just a clip of where Emeka Anyaoku was making that entreaty to the president. We'll listen to it for a bit, and I'll come back to take you up on the issues raised. So, I mean, if Jonathan is ready with that, let's hear Emeka Anyaoku make that point about Nigeria needing a new constitution and the modalities he proposed for that constitution to come into force.
Above all, Mr. President, the Patriots believe that your personal record as one of the great champions of Nigeria's democracy, Nigeria's struggle to restore democracy during the Nnadi days, provides our country with its best opportunity for achieving Nigeria's people's democratic constitution. To this end, we have come to appeal to you to send to the National Assembly the President's executive bill, which would call for two important measures. First, the convening of a National Constituent Assembly with the mandate to produce a draft People's Democratic Constitution. The Constituent Assembly should be of directly elected individuals, elected on non-political party basis from the 36 states of the Federation, possibly 3 individuals per state and 1 from the Federal Capital Territory. They should be assisted by 7 constitutional lawyers, drawn 1 each from the 6 geopolitical zones and 1 from the Federal Capital Territory. And the deliberations of the Constituent Assembly should take into full account the 1960 and 63 constitutions, as well as the recommendations of the 2014 National Conference, and indeed of the various other national conferences that considered the Nigerian Constitution. And the second measure that we propose for your President's executive bill is for the establishment.
All right. I mean, that was Chief Emeka Anyaoku there, elder statesman, and of course, former Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Mr. Nnadi, I'm sure you already know the story. We just have to recap it, just for those who haven't had the opportunity to listen to him make this proposal to the president. And this all points to one thing, that there is something wrong with the 1999 Constitution. Let's recap your organization's grounds against the 1999 Constitution, and then you respond to the proposal made by Chief Emeka Anyaoku, whether that's the way forward, especially from the point of view of NINAS.
Yes, it's a pity that a statesman of the standing of Chief Emeka Anyaoku will go to make such a proposition, because the issue we have to deal with, the reason the Constitution, which he says is illegitimate, the reason we are rejecting that Constitution is because the peoples of Nigeria in whom the sovereignty resides have not made any Constitution. That is our grounds against that Constitution. And if you want to know what that grounds means, that is, what is it that NINAS say is wrong? You go straight to the preamble to that Constitution that says that we, the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, having firmly and solemnly resolved to live in unity as one indivisible, indissoluble country, do hereby make and give unto ourselves the following Constitution. There are 3 false claims in that preamble, which has now consumed that Constitution. And if we do not take time, we'll consume the Union of Nigeria with catastrophic consequences for Nigerians. Our concern is not for Nigeria that died. The Federation of Nigeria died in 1966, was buried in 1967, the day Yakubu Gowon fractured the 4 federating regions into 12 states. Our concern is for the 230 million Nigerians that are trapped in the carcass of that defunct Federation of Nigeria. And what NINAS has done across the last 25 years, was to, like doctors would do, we have all we are seeing the same symptoms, like Chief Emeka Anyaoku did say. We are all agreed that Nigeria is not working. Nigeria of unitarism is not working. We have all agreed that the reason it's not working because we have an inverted federal arrangement, that is a unitary system parading itself as a federal constitution. We have also all agreed that we need to move away, to change from that bad arrangement. And if we have agreed on all of that, the only departure then becomes how, by what mechanism are we going to do that? And if we have agreed that it is because in saying that the Constitution is illegitimate, Chief Emeka Anyaoku and the Patriots have affirmed our position that have been heard long before any of them came to talk about it. We have been out on the streets since 1999. Within 3 weeks of the imposition of that Constitution, we already raised the issue. We began to do things first by even investigating how Absalom Abaka and Co. came about that Constitution in 1999. We saw that it was Murtala Mohammed. This same thing that Emeka Anyaoku is asking Tinubu to do now was what Murtala Mohammed did in October, November of 1975. Murtala Mohammed began to construct what would become the Constitution of Nigeria like a house built from the roof. He set up a constitution drafting committee headed by Rotimi Williams, who then brought in Ben Mwabeze to help in that drafting. They started by constitution drafting committee. There is a difference between a world of difference between constitution drafting and constitution making. Nigeria is supposed to be a federation. Nigeria is failing today because it abandoned its federal foundation. And the remedy to that situation, we do not need, a nuclear scientist to explain to us that the remedy to our situation is to go back to being a federation from where we are now. We have been in the wrong place and we have seen the outcome. All the symptoms, everything we complain about, whether it is corruption or insecurity or impunity or the decayed infrastructure, general hopelessness, the free fall of the economy, everything is flowing from that constitution, that bad constitutional arrangement, that untenable unitary constitutional arrangement that centralized everything and made them unworkable. And so, why do we begin with going to draft a constitution for a federation? A federation is a union of constitutions. And therefore, the first order of business, going back to that preamble, is to identify who will be federating. Who are that we the people? If Nigeria does not define that we the people, then every time they say our country, our democracy, our economy, they are talking to themselves. They are not talking to me. Because we don't have a union. If it is a lie that we the Ogoni, we the Yoruba, we the Tiv, if it is a lie that we firmly and solemnly resolved to live in unity forever, which is the basis of that whole constitution, that falsehood of Absalom Abaka is the basis upon which we are being held at gunpoint in the union. And it is alleged that we therefore made and gave us ourselves the following constitution. What does that tell you? That a group of people, by decree, imposed a forged instrument that is like title deed, creating the enterprise Nigeria in their own definition. Because in the false claim that we therefore made and gave unto ourselves the following constitution, they are saying that it is we who submitted our sovereignty, that's our lands and our people, into the union. They are saying that we agreed amongst ourselves, meaning that we discussed robustly, extensively, and came to the conclusion that that was best for us. That is the meaning of that preamble, of having firmly and solemnly resolved. Then it comes to the third one that says, we therefore make and give unto ourselves. That means we wrote down our agreement in what has now become constitution for all of us. It is in that sense that NINAS is saying, look, everything that you call Nigeria, whether it is the fact of union, is coming from that claim that we the people firmly and solemnly resolve to live together. We the job, and you cannot give another meaning to that we the people other than the constituent components of Nigeria, the owners of the sovereignties that are aggregated into your Union of Nigeria. What Chief Emeka Anyaoku and the Patriots, because if you look back at who the Patriots are, the first chairman, Rotimi Williams, that drafted this abomination for Murtala Mohammed in 1975-76. Second chairman of Patriots, Ben Wabweze, who together with Rotimi Williams drafted this constitution of death for the Caliphate for a fee, for a very good fee, that was followed by all kinds of other rewards. Otherwise, somebody should tell us how Ben Wabweze became the chairman of Union Bank in the mid-70s. Unfortunate that it's late now, and a good thing that he confessed to that wrongdoing in 2013 when we confronted him. I confronted him publicly after dealing with him in private on this subject. Why did you lock us into this bad arrangement? And it was at the point he had gone to molest Jonathan in the villa. When we were going to court in 2007, after the Pronaco, to say, look, let us wind down the operation of this constitution peacefully. 2007, with plenty that included Nohoro, number one, Ojukwu, Sisiono, Bankoloki, and 2 persons being held for treason at the time. Asari Dokuba and Owazuke. We went to court. It fell on me to file that suit and to prosecute it. The Attorney General of Nigeria joined issues with us in court and admitted our case. He said that what we brought before the court, he had no answer to it. That was the response of the Attorney General of Nigeria in 2007. And at that time, Enohoro and others wanted Professor Benwebeze to be the lead counsel, to lead us to court, so that that matter will be, will gain the traction it needed quickly enough. I had to go to sit down with him in his office in Adekunle in Lagos to say, sir, this is the request. And we discussed, and he agreed with me that in the face of what is written in that preamble, against the backdrop of the decree number 24 by which that constitution was enacted in 1999.
Okay.
That nobody can find an answer if we went to court, but he declined.
Yes.
And so we went to court.
Yeah,
so what I'm trying to explain to you is that the problem we have to solve now is those 3 falsehoods in the sequence they occurred in that constitution. The first falsehood is we the people. Who are the we the people? If we do not allow the owners of the sovereignty, the Yoruba that will be a country of 60 million people is one of those people you are alleging to have submitted their land into your union. The Ijaw that will be a country of its own, the Tiv, the Berom, all of those the British locked in here since 1914. And what we're saying is that unless we identify them as the owners of the sovereignties that have been confiscated into Nigeria that is not working, unless you allow them to freely discuss whether they want to be in union, and if yes, on what terms, like Bola Ige pointed out long time ago. Those 2 questions, Nigeria must now answer them.
Thank you.
It is those questions that they are trying to evade. By starting from the 3rd station, it is when you have identified the owners of the sovereignties.
Great.
You allow them to go to discuss among themselves.
Okay, great.
Then you can codify it.
Yes, so that we make very good use of our time to talk in a lot of the things we need to discuss. It's a good thing you've made this point. So, but let me move on to the next one, which is, are you saying that that whatever proposal he's made, that if I understand your analysis, it means that this is not about picking people from 36 states, isn't it? That's the point you're making. That it has to be the ethnic nationalities that should be talking and not the 36 states, isn't it?
Yes. There are several things wrong, and that was what alarmed us, for which reason we began to respond to their proposition from afar. The first thing is starting the process by drafting a constitution. That was how we got into the pit we are in now. The first thing that has to be done is to identify the people that will federate. South Africa solved the same type of problem in 1990 to ease itself out of the apartheid constitution. The apartheid constitution that rendered the sovereign, peoples of South Africa slaves in their homeland. That's exactly what we need to solve now. And the mechanism, there was a parliament in South Africa. There was a government of Frederick de Klerk. It wasn't by going to gather in government house to do all kinds of things. The 36 states is talking about. How did we arrive at 36 states? So if we begin by going to draft without discussion, it is that originating discussion between the owners of the lands, the peoples of Nigeria that are corralled since 1914 into a union that has not served them any purpose other than death and misery and backwardness. Because a few people will gather in some place, either in London or Abuja or Sokoto or somewhere, to share the blood of the owners of the land. And we say the question constitution is the 3rd station. The 1st station is identifying those who are willing to federate. 2nd station, allowing them to go to discuss among themselves, to agree to be in union and to settle the terms of that union, because that's where they now begin to talk about the formations. Do they want to be 10 regions or 5 states or whatever formation? Is it to be unitary or federal? Is it to be the exclusive list? How many things do we give to the union office, the federal government to do for us? It is in that firmly and solemnly resolving to be in union that they settle all those questions. It's after they've done all of that that you now come to the question of constitution drafting. Anybody can draft constitution. Anybody can draft constitution. But it is not the drafting. It is the negotiation. That is why it is called constitution making. That is why it is called making constitutional arrangements. It's not a matter of writing constitution. Give us a new constitution. A federation is a union of constitutions. And the reason Nigeria is upside down is that we have abandoned the federal foundation upon which Nigeria was set up as one political union. We now began to build this untenable unitary system that has choked all the constituent components to death. They are just dying off. And the people who are holding them at gunpoint with their signature authorizing that damnation. How did we come about 36 states? How did we come about 704 local government areas that were smuggled into that constitution by decree? And we now have 812 governments that we have to finance. How did we come about 68 items on the exclusive list that make it impossible for me to do anything for myself? My economic assets, whether it was oil and gas, or the ports, or the solid minerals, everything taken. My power to use any of those things taken away. I can't refine the crude oil that I have. I can't generate electricity for myself. Oji River had a power plant running on coal, by which the eastern region was developed. Was it not Emma Okpara's government that built Trans-Amadi in Port Harcourt using the electricity from Oji River? How come there's nobody in Igbo land today that can generate electricity for itself? Because there's an exclusive list. My security is in the hands of those who came in genocide against me in 1966, 67, all the way to 1970. And we doubt whether that war has ended up to this time, because all of what they loaded into the 1979 Constitution were simply the victory charter from 1970, the war in which they claimed victory and then took over everybody's everything to this date. And so we're saying we have endured this sufficiently. They brought it in 1979, and then something went wrong in 83. They brought it back wholesale in 1999. Our signature still sitting there as the authors of our own damnation. And so we reject anything that is anchored on that constitution, including the 36 states that were created by Brigand Day, because I'm already then excluded from having my voice in what will become our union, if it is on the basis of five persons. Who is going to be electing? Where is the Nigeria they want to go and write draft constitution for? Why can't Nigeria engage the constituent peoples of Nigeria in the process, in the manner that had been tabled before all since the year 2020? The 5-point proposition of NINAS was a product of 20 years of day and night consultation amongst the owners of Nigeria, who are now more desirous of leaving the union.
Yes, Mr. Nnadi, a very robust point is made. But, Chief Emeka Anyaoku took the bold step to meet the president and made the proposition. How will your organization, both the LNC, both NINAS, because we have a new sheriff in town, his name is President Bola Tinubu. You can't have this, whatever proposition you have cannot come to fruition except the president flows with it. How is your organization planning to present this to the president if you haven't presented it to him? Because I'm not sure what you're saying would happen in vacuum.
The matter is straightforward. That president, Bola Tinubu, became governor of Lagos State from our fold in Nadeko. From that point, he became Lagos governor. The main quarrel between him and Obasanjo, for which Obasanjo now sees the council funds, was on account of Tinubu standing with Enohoro and Shoyinka in what Pronaco was doing, to call a meeting of the owners of Nigeria to decide how they will proceed with their union. And so there's really nothing to explain on, and he was on that side until whatever came to his head entered his head, and he then went to bring Buhari to become president of Nigeria. to make way for himself. That's where, so there's really nothing to go to explain to him. In any event, talking about whether he knows or he doesn't know, the constitutional force majeure that NINAS declared in December of 2020 was delivered to government, was published in 4 pages of newspaper, Guardian newspaper, January 20, 2021. Guardian newspaper, January 20, 2021. And that proposition has the force majeure proclamation has this 5-point proposition of
well, I don't know that apparently there's a bit of challenge with Mr. Nnadi's connection, but he was trying to make a point because I wanted him to respond to whether they have made any presentation to the federal government, because if you want the constitution to be changed, someone in government must be aware, and one, the president should be aware, and then the National Assembly should be aware too. So how is this going to happen? That's the big question there that I want Mr. Nnadi to respond to, as he was explaining that President Bola Tinubu, even before he became president, knows all about this, all about the struggle, all about the peoples. But then we'll take a very quick break here on the Eastern Eye. When we return, hopefully, we'll have Mr. Nnadi back on the line to explain further on this point. Stay with us. The Eastern Eye is live here on Afia TV. We are transmitting from Enugu, Southeast Nigeria. My name is Alex Obodo, and I have Mr. Tony Nnadi rejoining me now from Lagos. He's been trying to make a point, and I'm just trying to get where you're headed with your explanation. Are you saying it's not something nice to, just for sakes of courtesy, to inform the president that this could be a nice thing to do? At least if Emeka Anyaoku took the pains to go to the villa. I mean, if you don't want to go to the villa, maybe you should do an open letter. That's people employ that too. I mean, to officially register that this proposal was also made.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. We did it in every possible way. Diplomats, all the diplomatic missions in Nigeria got their copies. The UN Security Council and Trusteeship Council got their copies. The government of Nigeria got its copies. But in order to make sure that nobody claims that they didn't see their copies, we publish it as advertorial, unedited. In Guardian newspaper, it is still there. Guardian of January 20, 2021. Pages 38, 39, 40, and 41. 4 full pages in Guardian newspaper. So that no government, foreign or local, will say they didn't see. And so, as at this date in August of 2024, the proposition of NINAS that is contained in that constitutional force majeure, which had been handed to the government of the time and continuously put before everybody in government. If there's anybody who is a governor or senator or president of Nigeria that says he has never seen that document, including the present president, if they have never seen it, let them go to their own archive. Let them go to Guardian newspaper. Let them go to the website where it is posted. And the reason we are not going to be rushing to them is that we had engaged them for too long. The sovereignty, they do not understand the meaning of constitution. That is the tragedy of the situation. If I almost forgot, if the Dumebi, if the Dumebi that you talked about is the one that went to contest election, that is saying that constitution is not the problem, you can then see the tragedy we are living in. That somebody as illiterate as Dumebi Kachukwu will be contesting to be president of Nigeria when he doesn't understand the meaning of constitution. That was exactly what Peter Obi did In his campaign, he started by saying that Constitution of Nigeria is not the problem with Nigeria, that it is leadership. It is the Constitution that has imposed on us this kind of leadership we have had. If Peter Obi does not know it, then he should not venture near the attempt to go to contest election to come and govern Nigeria. Because if I were to ask him, what is Nigeria? He will have no answer. They don't understand the meaning of Constitution. That's why they're sitting in Abuja, imagining that people must come and do obeisance to them in their coven in order to get into the business of Constitution. Is simply what it says, to constitute. The sovereignties that are, aggregated into this union belong to the owners of the lands that make up Nigeria. The federal government of Nigeria does not own any square inch of land. It is the Yoruba that can be a country of their own, the Ijaw that can be a country of their own, the Tiv that can be a country of their own, that are federating. The British avoided them. The British refused to discuss with them and imposed the union at gunpoint in 1914. By the time they went to Lancaster House, they still did not go to the owners. They just worked with the politicians they had groomed. By 1967, everything that collapsed, everything that went bad in 1966, got decapitated on the 27th of May in 1967 by Yakubu Gowon, Lieutenant Colonel. From that time to this date, we have been living in that union at gunpoint. The unitary Nigeria that confiscated the sovereignties of all of those people. And what NINAS is saying is that sovereignty belongs to those people, from whom government, through this constitution, derives all its powers and authority. Go to section 14.2a if you're in doubt. And then you go to the decree number 24 of 1999, by which Absalom Abaka imposed this constitution. He told the story of how they came about the constitution. And what we went to do in court in 2007 was to place this formally before the court to say, the owners of the lands that you call Nigeria are saying, we did not meet. We did not agree on anything. We did not submit our land and our people into this union. We are being held here against our will at gunpoint. All over the place, you see the agitations. It is that constitution and this issue. And so, if anybody, you saw the election of 2023, we were shouting from the rooftop, let us leave the election alone. The winner of this election will not find any Nigeria to govern. Is there any Nigeria that Bola Tinubu is governing today? Is there any Nigeria in place today that they are governing from that Abuja? Because everywhere is up in flames. You saw it last week. And we say, let us do the simple thing. Okay, good. Let us acknowledge the 5-point proposition. The 5-point proposition, so that you can understand why we are not in a hurry to come to any Abuja. The people who are in Abuja, tell me any one of them who have not been involved in this process. Was it not Bola Tinubu that was the leader of APC that put a restructuring of Nigeria in their manifesto? What happened to that plan? How did they arrive at putting it in their manifesto? Then the Buhari he brought say it cannot be done. And then they come back now and begin to talk about 2014 conference and all kinds of nasty suggestions about 1963. Why can't we do the first things first? Admit, acknowledge expressly that this constitution was not made by the peoples of Nigeria. It is when you make that admission that you now come to the question of if an express commitment to decommission it. It is when you have made that commitment that you now put a time frame by saying we can't go to another election on the basis of this constitution so that we can do what needs to be done to rework the constitutional basis of Nigeria. Otherwise, the Nigeria we have now, anchored on this fraud of 1999, is dead and gone. All right. That Nigeria you think you have is gone. So I just wanted the owners of the sovereignty does not require anybody's permission, including the federal government in Abuja, okay, to take their portions and leave the union. Mr. And taking their portions, they're going to take their economic assets. Yes, Mr. Nnadi, we have about 9 minutes or 8 to go. And I wanted to quickly get your thoughts, because recently we've had protests in Nigeria, and they made demands. And some of the demands they made, you already know. And of course, Chief Emeka Anyaoku also suggested that the president should dialogue with the protesters. And in what ways do you think they can do this? Because I also wanted to also add to that, because we don't have a lot of time, so you can respond at the same time. There has been calls too for the Igbos to leave Lagos. In an infamous tweet by
a Twitter handle or an X handle called Lagospedia. Said the Igbo should leave Lagos, or matter of fact, the whole of Southwest. And then they said by 20th of this month. That's what it said. And a lot of people have responded. Professor Sam Amadi have petitioned the Inspector General of Police over that. The Southeast Caucus of the National Assembly have also made a petition on that, speaking against it and asking the government of Lagos State to do something about it. You are in Lagos. Have you seen any action on that? I mean, answering all the questions together. We'll have about right. 6 minutes to go.
Right. I live in the place where it's happening. Bulldozers are all over the place. And the reason I consider it a matter not worthy of any discussion is that the spokesman of the president of Nigeria, Bayo Ononuga, you saw what he put on tweet concerning the Igbo and Lagos. So if that spokesman of the president is the one that said that, and down the road we saw Igbo must go movement in Lagos, I do not blame anybody else than the president of Nigeria. Every other person came to join him. Every other person doing whatever they are doing, including what the government of Lagos and the ignorant lot that are making all kinds of. But the thing that will solve Nigeria, the fuel we need to get done, the business that needs to be done for Nigeria now, will probably be supplied by this huge, this unquantifiable, I don't even know how to describe the quantum of hatred, the quantum of evil being projected at this same Igbo. I don't intend to get into that discussion. I will actually say, let it roll. Let it roll. That fear that will blow up what is left of the failed Lugadian experiment of 1914. Because tell me who else in Nigeria, you think you have a Nigeria, tell me who else is in other parts of the country believing in that country other than the Igbo. Look at Abuja. Who else has built in Abuja? How many Yoruba have houses in Lagos, in Enugu and Port Harcourt? How many houses are building in Abeokuta and Ibadan? So if the Igbo that built in Sokoto and Kano and Maiduguri and Abuja and Lagos are being hounded in the way they are being hounded now, I tell you, it is a cause for joy for those who know that the Union of 1914 is already at an end. And back to your first question of dialogue. The dialogue Nigeria must have now, because he started the talk of dialogue began with the president as he was addressing, as he was skirting around the issues raised by the protesters. You remember that the number one item on the list of the protesters was the matter of scrapping the 1999 Constitution, because they now understand that all the issues they are raising, whether it is bad governance or bad leadership or corruption, every other thing they are raising, electoral impunity, electoral malfeasance, Syria, everything is flowing from that Constitution. And therefore, they put it as their number one demand. You saw the protesters that went to our embassy in the US. You saw that it's end 1999 Constitution that was their sole demand. And so the president that refused to address that demand was reading his manifesto of election all over to them. But he says, yes, he's open to dialogue. NINAS is saying that the dialogue Nigeria must now have is one about the question of union. NINAS is saying the mechanism for going to that dialogue is not to go and call the protesters into one corner. The issues they raise requires the whole country meeting. So it's not a meeting of Tinubu call protester to a meeting. It is that union reconstruction negotiation. It is that transition like South Africa did in 1990 that Nigeria must do now. They may ignore it. They may continue to pretend that they have a Nigeria that is indissoluble and indivisible. I tell you, if that Nigeria is anchored on the foundation of this fraud you see in my hand, that Nigeria is already at an end. We're only talking about the decent burial of that 1999 constitution and the transition for an orderly, reconstruction, for an orderly reconfiguration. NINAS constitutional force majeure, the 5-point proposition, is on the table that takes us from the first step to the finish line on what we can do with Nigeria now. The dialogue that Nigeria must have is one for the constituent components of Nigeria, the peoples of Nigeria, to renegotiate their union in a transition that begins with a suspension of any talk of further national elections in 2027. Because those who are choking in the Nigeria that's not working are not going to fold their arms until they are killed off by militia or Fulani, by hunger, and all the things government is throwing at them. The protests have come and gone, but the protesters did indicate before they began that if they are pushed back, that they will come back at their own time unannounced, and that the victims of that second coming will be those who block them from raising the issues they are raising. This is the time for everybody to come down from their high horse and get into this business of what shall we do with Nigeria that has failed. The reason Nigeria is failing is that constitution. Unfortunately, it appears that the people gathered in Abuja do not understand constitution to mean the union agreement. That claim that we the people have solemnly resolved to live together is false. And if the remedy available, to those who are choking is the one of sovereignty that belongs to them and the self-determination that attaches to that sovereignty, they do not require anybody's permission to assert their sovereignty or their self-determination. It is right. Both of them are inalienable. The sovereignty, this is land and people, and the right to self-determination, that is your right to live in that space, irrespective of whatever other people think. They don't need anybody's permission.
That's a good place to live in, Mr. Nnadi.
Nigeria and go their way.
That would be a good place to live it, and I have to thank you so much, Tony Nnadi, an attorney, Secretary General of the Lower Niger Congress, LNC, and co-convener of NINAS. NINAS is, of course, the nationalities of indigenous peoples in Nigeria. Is a whole lot to talk about. So, I wish we had more time, but we'll have more time next time. Thank you so much, Mr. Nnadi, for talking to us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, thank
you for having me.
Yes, that's the Eastern Eye for tonight. Up next is Uncut with Rochelle. My name is Alex Obodo. Eastern Eye returns tomorrow same time. Good night.